Okay. Hello, everybody. Anyone who's tuning in? Can't see yet. Hold on. Mm-mm. There we go. All right. Hello, everybody. Now I could see. Okay, cool. Hi, happy to be here. Hello, Susan. Hello, Keystone EON. Hello, animals are here with us, not for us. Can everybody hear me good? Do I sound good? All right. Live chat. Hello, Plant Abuser. It's an awesome name. Hello, Renzo. Okay. Really quick. Hold on. God, I hate having to do all this streaming stuff. I don't know how you guys do it. All right, we're just waiting until there's enough people in here to get started. Let's see. Let's get Race Lover says, let's get this party started. That absolutely. We're getting there. All right. Guys, I'm putting a link for you to, if you feel so inclined to do so, for you to donate. I'm pinning it. You do not have to, but anything is appreciated. Okay. Hello, Pig's Dream. Hello, everybody who is in. Hello, Gig. Yes. So we're going to be discussing some interesting topics today, maybe some controversial ones. Hopefully not. It should be pretty chill, pretty collaborative. Let me see. Create highlight video. Nope, don't need that. Okay, cool. All right, well, we'll give it just a few extra moments. I will tell you, I had a rough activism day today. I don't know if you guys noticed, I haven't been posting too many outreach videos. Not because I don't want to, just because I haven't been able to get any. I've been outside like for the last 3 weeks for hours at a time. Nobody's talked. But today, I got some crazy videos and I got some crazy interactions. Especially with an older couple who almost never stop and talk. But yeah, a lot of heat. I don't want it to go that way. It just does. So hopefully it'll at least be entertaining. And for people who aren't vegan, they should see that, you know, the vegan position is better. But we'll see. Race Lever says, I'm hijacking the link, so please donate, everyone. I don't know what that means. Please do not infiltrate anything, but I appreciate the urge to donate. So thank you. How is everyone else doing? Um, Ray Sliver said fighting the elderly for the animals. Yes, yes. And what's so funny is I didn't mean so like in the interaction. I at the end I was like, because the guy was being like, when you talk to somebody who clearly is not um, listening and is just so ignorant and like stubborn, but then they say, I appreciate you being out here and fighting for your beliefs and being like and they're like, that's what America's about, like somebody who's just that is just so annoying. And like I don't know if it's condescending is the right word, but just super annoying. So at the end I wanted to genuinely, I did kind of want to say thank you for stopping to talk, because most older people don't stop and talk. But how it came out in the moment was I said, I said I appreciate you guys talking, because most old people, I said old people, and they were like the guy. Oh my god, he got genuinely so upset. And I didn't mean it as an insult, but yeah, he got so upset. He was like, did you just call me old? And then he was like, yeah, I get it. We're old, so our opinion doesn't matter. And I was like, no, that's not what I'm saying. But they were like honestly kind of jerks, because their argument boiled down to might equals right. And I was talking to two like younger teenagers, and while I was talking to them, and actually I think I was gonna get somewhere with one of them, the guy kept interrupting. So we were already starting off on a heated point. So yeah, that was just annoying. It's like you learn at like 5 years old, like, all right, you get in line, you wait your turn, you don't just start budging in. You went ageist on him. Yes, I did, Race Lever. Yes, I did. Plant abuser asks, why is plant abuse morally justified? Because they're not sentient. Morals are really like the idea of morality is for sentient, conscious individuals who can feel pain, suffer, who have a will to live. If you don't have a will to live, if there's no individual home, there's no real moral issue there. Anybody else have anything interesting they want to put in the chat? Anything going on with any of you guys? Tell you one thing, I was exhausted after I did like 3 in a row, and I was like done after that. Oh, Allie, is plant abuser vegan? Is they just like trolling kind of? Yeah, that's a great point, Race Lever. Even oh my God, the older, sorry, not old, the older couple, um, they were like, how do you know that a cow has consciousness or a cow is sentient? And even they even said that like they take care of companion animals. They grew up with dogs, grew up with cats, and I said, do you not watch them? Like, do you not interact with them? Like, besides scientific consensus, which they seem to like want to go against, just from an observation or just from like an interaction standpoint, like, do you not notice they have like personalities and like have a will to live? Um, and what was I saying? And then they asked, how do you know that a carrot doesn't have a brain? So that was like a genuine question. They said, how do you know that a carrot doesn't have a brain? And I said, are you serious? Like, how do we know a carrot doesn't have a brain? Because we study carrots and we look at them under microscopes and we know they don't have brains. Dead issue, since veganism harms less plants and less animals, so we got it covered right either way. Yes, I agree, Race Lover. You have the same Yeti thermos. Really? Wow, that's like another connection. I've had this for like 5 years, so cool. Twinning. All right. Pigstream, I am not a carrot. That's right. You were not a carrot. All right. I guess we get started. So I'm sure people here. I don't know if you guys read my comments about the lab-grown meat debate. Yeah. First off, please, if you guys have a question, just put it in the chat about lab-grown meat. I would love to answer any questions, or if you have anything for me to think about, I would love to. But I think when it comes to lab-grown meat, there's the debate premise, right, that was on Carnism Debunked or whatever it was. Should vegans support lab-grown meat? I think when we're talking about lab-grown meat, it's kind of important to think about. Okay, all right. So let me break it down this way. When we're talking about lab-grown meat, right, there's multiple ways you could get the animal cells, right? When we're talking about lab-grown meat where animals are actively being exploited, right? So they get what's it called? When you grab the cells from them, I forgot what it's called. But for companies that are actively exploiting animals, lab-grown meat is obviously not vegan, right? I think that's pretty obvious based on the definition, based on based on the Vegan Society's definition, or based on my own position. I would say that lab-grown meat that exploits animals is not vegan, right? Now, I know that's what the debate was on, but I feel like there was a focus on lab-grown, on like whether lab-grown meat is vegan or whether vegans should support it, and not really much talk about what lab-grown meat would mean, like in like real world, in like a real world application, right? And I would say, if there are lab-grown meat companies that are able to produce lab-grown animal flesh without exploiting animals, like some examples were given. Now, again, I haven't looked into the research, so I'm not an expert on the development of lab-grown meat, how it's done. But if there are companies that are able to produce lab-grown meat without exploiting actual sentient animals, I don't see that as not vegan, and I don't see that as a problem. And just to break that down, lab-grown meat that's created without actually exploiting animals perpetuates the idea that animals are still food, as much as a plant-based meat alternative that advertises itself as an animal product, right? So let's say you have chicken patties, okay? So you have plant-based chicken patties at the store, right? I'm sure all vegans, if not, I'm going to assume that all vegans would be in support or would view it as perfectly vegan to consume a plant-based chicken patty, even though it says chicken, even though it still perpetuates like, okay, animal flesh mashed up and deep fried is still food, right? So if you can do the same thing with lab-grown animal flesh that doesn't have to exploit animals, just like plant-based alternatives don't, then I don't see a problem. I don't see that as a confliction with veganism. Now, I already mentioned we were talking about vegan, lab-grown companies that are exploiting animals for the product, or to create the animal flesh. Yeah, I definitely see an ethical issue with that, and I don't think we should support it. But personally, I have no reason to support, or I have no desire to consume lab-grown flesh, to support lab-grown flesh. It would have to be a very specific circumstance where I knew maybe where the product was coming from, and something. Who knows? I would have to be given like a specific hypothetical. But I honestly have no interest. I'm fine with eating plants, whole foods for the most part. So That's the first thing. I'm gonna say that that's my position. If anybody watching thinks I should be against lab-grown meat, even though there was no exploitation to get the cells and to create the meat, then I'm very interested in having that conversation. It's just I don't see it. Like, the reason why I'm vegan is not just because I have some kind of bias or some kind of, like, I just love animals and I don't want anybody to mess with animals. The reason why I'm vegan is because I recognize that animal exploitation is wrong because they have a will to live. And I think that they are close enough to humans in all the ways that matter that they deserve similar, if not the same, rights as humans, right? When it comes to right to life, protection from harm, etc. That's why I'm vegan. So if hypothetically, if we can replicate animals, but they aren't sentient, right? Animal flesh that isn't sentient, and we didn't have to exploit animals to get that. Yes, does it still maybe put in people's minds or put in society like, okay, this is animal flesh, this is like somewhat normal? Maybe, but it's gonna say lab grown. I mean, I'm assuming it's gonna say like lab grown, or like, hopefully we label it as like non-sentient, or like, whatever. So, I think the mindset would be different. I think most people would rather get the product or get their food from a source that literally no sentient animal had to be exploited, harmed, abused, killed, etc. But they're still eating the flesh of like a lab that was made in like a lab setting, All right, hold on. Let me look at the chat really quick. So that's my position on that. I will go into some other stuff when it comes to like what the application of lab-grown meat I think would do and how it compares to other injustices. But let me look at the chat. Plant-based meats is greater than lab-grown clone animal Franken Meats. Yeah, Race Lever, I would agree. Like I said, I have personally no interest, but I think it's important, like, when we're looking at the impact of something, to take kind of our own personal preferences, or like, to take something that's purely like just like a subjective preference, like, oh, I like this, I don't like that, kind of out of it. But yeah, I agree. I also prefer plant-based meats, or just whole foods too, like oatmeal and stuff. Hello, Michael Askew. Plant abuser. Does lab-grown meat save animals? I don't know about save animals. I mean, right now there is, as far as I know, there's no lab-grown products on the market, so I don't think so. Race Lever, no, vegans should not support animal products. Well, yeah, vegans should not support animal products. Lab-grown products, we'll get to that, Race Lever. I more or less agree with you, but I think there's some things to consider. Pigs in biopsy. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Biopsy. Thank you. Susan, I personally think that human cells should be taken. And that's an interesting point. Yeah, like, for instance, when it comes to, like, I just want to make my position very clear. I would rather, right? The message is always going to be abolition. The message is always going to be stop viewing animals as products. They are not ours to exploit for any reason, whether it's entertainment, clothing, furniture, food, whatever, right? They are not ours to exploit under any circumstance. But that's a little bit different than looking at like real world applications and real world progress that is ultimately going to that may ultimately help us get to our goal quicker, or help us get to regulation quicker, or help the animals quicker, right? Like, and I'm talking very quick. Now, it's just speculation. So like I said, I don't really have a hard position on this, but I'm just airing my thoughts because I think some of them are interesting, and I think we could have a good discussion. But yeah, I mean, if somebody wanted to try human flesh in a hypothetical where that couldn't like create an industry where they're killing actual humans for their flesh, I don't see an ethical issue with that. Now, obviously, if they're taking biopsies, it would have to be consensual, right? Which is why I said earlier I'm kind of against companies that exploit animals to get the cells. But if they could do it from my hair, I mean, I don't see an ethical issue with that. It's not actually harming any or violating the rights of any sentient individual. Race Lever says lab-grown meat is a trap. Has vegans promoting animal products already, and Carnus not going vegan because of it. See, I could maybe see that, but that would just be an empirical claim. Like speculating, I don't know if, like, to me, I don't buy that lab-grown meat would prevent people from going vegan. Well, okay. Would lab-grown meat maybe prevent certain individuals from adopting the vegan mindset? Probably. Yeah, probably, right? But right now, people have almost an impossible time adopting the vegan mindset, right? Like we're talking about, we're trying to get people to understand that animals are here as individuals. And like 98% of the planet, or whatever the number is, they do not understand that, right? They don't see it, and the numbers are growing. And like I said, the message should always be animals are not here to be exploited. But I want to talk about if lab-grown meat does come into production, why it's not necessary. I don't think it's a bad thing, right? Forget about should vegans support it. Forget about it as a vegan. I've already kind of addressed that. But I want to talk about the real-world applications, because yes, like we can talk about the vegan message and changing people into having a vegan mindset and all of those things. I want to stress that is the goal, right? The goal is change people's mindsets, create a more moral world, a more morally consistent world, a more, all of the things we value. But I do think lab-grown meat has the potential to do something very, very big. And I'll get into that. The burden of proof is on the pro-lab meat side. The burden of proof that it will help people go vegan, or help people at least stop contributing to animal exploitation. Yes, and I think, again, the best we can do, just like how various forms of activism, we don't necessarily know which one's better, what's going to lead to the most vegans, or the most what's going to lead to our goal quicker. But with speculation, with statistics, like in that lab-grown meat debate, Jordan at least was able to provide some kind of survey, something that infers or like speculates that lab-grown meat would actually help a lot of people at least stop actively contributing to the exploitation of animals, to actual sentient animals. Forget about the mindset for a second. We're just talking about the real-world application. No, not as much as plant-based does. Race Lever, I don't know what that means. Plant-based meat should be your line. Well, again, I'm open to an argument for why lab-grown flesh that doesn't actively exploit animals would be morally problematic or would be an issue. But obviously, besides the fact that it's still off-putting. Yes, it still may, validate the idea that animals are products. But, like I said, I've eaten a plant-based chicken wing that literally had a bone in it. Like, I've eaten a plant-based chicken wing that had a bone in it. It was in the shape of a chicken wing. Like, that doesn't change people's mindsets, right? That shows, okay, a chicken's leg is still, like, or at least the visual of a chicken's leg is still food. But you can have that. You can have the look, the feel, the texture, the taste that you're used to. You just don't have to actively contribute to the exploitation and death of animals. lab-grown animal flesh that also doesn't contribute to the exploitation and killing of sentient animals also would do that. It's just like another step in technology. Race Lover says, good. Vegans should not support lab-grown clone animal Franken Meats at all. Let the carnists promote animal products. We have things. Yeah, I mean, more or less, I do agree. I don't see a reason to actively promote animal flesh. Like, I would never promote lab-grown animal flesh in my activism, ever, because I don't see a need for it. That's not the goal. But I do think, again, if carnists or non-vegans were to bring lab-grown meat into production, I do think it would have very positive impact. And that's more or less, that's what I find very interesting. But again, I don't think that's the end goal, but I do think it's a big step in the right direction and potentially a catalyst to get to our goal. And I do want to preface, my goal is to not just create more vegans, right? Like, my goal, like, one of my goals is to change people's minds and to create more vegans, because I think the vegan mindset or the vegan philosophy is one that is going to create a better world or better people, right? But ultimately, I want regulation, right? I want animals to be given legal rights and protections. Whether or not 98% of people adopt a vegan mindset doesn't matter as much to me as whether or not we can get animals protected, right? So, like, if we look at any other injustice, when black people were given rights, when women were given rights, they were not given rights because 98% of men or 98% of white people were in support of them being granted rights. But by them being granted rights, that already helps perpetuate a mindset or change the mindset for future generations. And above all, it does provide legal protections, right? The bare minimum. So that way, the exploitation, the harm can be drastically minimized because it's against the law, essentially. Race Lever, watch Born Vegans video on why vegans shouldn't promote lab-grown meat, lab-grown cloned animal meats with Dr. Milton Wills. Very informative. I watch that. I like Milton. I like Dr. Milton Wills. David C. Lucy, I think he meant Munson. Vegan of course, Veganese, entice, so nice. All vegans who are against cultured meat. Yeah, and again, a lot of their points I agree with and I get. It's just, again, when we're talking about real world applications, which I'm going to break down, I'm just going through the chat, I think would be interesting. Gigliardo said, would you tickle lab-grown feet? Yes, I would tickle lab-grown feet. Absolutely. Let me see. Hold on. Race Lever, did you say, hold on. Plant-based feed is greater than lab-grown cloned animal Franken feeds? Yes, I also agree with that. As if Race Lever is vegan, just F off. Michael Askew, some hostility towards Race Lever. All right, I don't know about that. Culture meat will accelerate the end of animal agriculture. Yes, that I agree with, and I'll explain why. Thank you, Veganix. Race Lever says, I am vegan, you little beach. Did anyone ask you? He hates that I'm more vegan than him. All right, guys, take it easy. No infighting here. We're collaborating. Deemstars, Veganix, source. Yes, I agree. Deemstars. Yes, like these are speculations, right? I don't think we can say for certain, but I do think there's a lot of arguments as to why this probably would accelerate or at least go a huge step in the right direction, which I'm going to get into. I just want to catch up with the chat. Yeah, I agree, Susan. Please no fighting in the chat. If there's any debate-esque thing, just ask the question in the chat or something. Giga Aro. No, man, you can't. Don't do that. don't. Come on, man. um, Pig's dream, wooden bone or real chicken bone? No. It was like a wooden bone, or whatever it was made out of. Yeah. No, I would never eat a. What's the point of doing a plant-based wing with a real chicken bone? I feel like that would defeat the purpose. And really quick, in case anybody who is not vegan is like scared of lab-grown animal flesh or something, just like, I always find that really funny. So just to break that down, I always find it funny how like some non-vegans are like perfectly fine with their animals being raised in like piss and shit, being slaughtered in piss and shit, having blood, piss and shit everywhere, and then them eating that animal flesh. But then when animal flesh is like created in a sterile environment in a lab, they have like some real fear of it or have like some government conspiracy. So I always find that funny. So yeah, lab grown flesh, it's not a government conspiracy. There's no like microchips or vaccines in the flesh. It would just be, it would eventually be identical, just made in a sterile lab environment. All right, let's see. Race Lover says, if lab-grown meat wins, then vegans lose. I don't necessarily think so. Especially because, again, we could, like, the message is always going to be clear for vegans. But again, and I don't mean to call you out, Race Lover. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I think we need to forget what the goal is, right? The goal is not vegans versus non-vegans, or like we get what we want, right? It's about how is this going to impact the actual animals that are being bred into existence, that are being kept in horrible conditions, that are being exploited, abused, murdered, etc. That's ultimately what matters. So like, I agree with you. As a vegan, if I'm at a restaurant and somebody's eating lab-grown flesh, whether it was created with exploitation or without, I might be a little uncomfortable. I might be like, okay, at least they're not killing sentient animals, but they're still eating like very visibly identical animal flesh. So yeah, it might be a little off-putting, but that's kind of like a personal thing. It would be, like I think we got to keep in mind the animals, and I'll go into that later. All right. Edgelord asked, are there cases of activists that poison the food for animals to try and put the farmers business? What do you think will happen if this disruption happens on Are there cases of activists that poisoned the food for animals? I don't know what you're asking, Edgelord. Are you asking if activists have poisoned animal feed? I don't think so. Okay. So I wonder, the only reason I would get lab-grown meat is to feed my adopted kitties. Fully plant-based for me. Meat is carcinogenic. Wrong is deadly. Is it made for our bodies as regular intakes? Yeah, I mean, there's other reasons not to eat animal flesh, but we're talking about animal rights for the most part. All right. Okay. Before I move on to talking about what I think the real-world applications would be for lab-grown flesh and how it compares to like other injustices, does anybody have any actual question for me, or any other like actual constructive point? I'm fine if you guys are just having your own chats, but like, does anybody have anything before I move on? Susan, yes, I kind of agree with you, except I don't know how long it's going to take before we don't have like companion animals or pets. We're talking, I mean, they're still breeding them like crazy. So we're talking at least multiple generations. So at least it would be good for that. Okay, so if there's no questions, so moving beyond like vegan or not vegan, here's what I think. Here's the real world applications that I would speculate that lab grown meat's going to have, right? I think that if it's priced the same, I would speculate, and again, speculation, I'm prefacing that, I don't have any empirical evidence, but I would speculate that your average person, right? I would say the majority of people would rather have their taste pleasure and choose the option that doesn't actively exploit or kill animals. And while lab-grown flesh may be actual animal cells that are petri dished or multiplied. And again, we're talking about, let's just, for this conversation, let's forget about companies that are actively exploiting animals, right? Because I think we're all against that, or would rather that not happen. So we're focusing on companies that can do this in a vegan compatible way, at least in terms of exploitation. When we're looking at, I feel like for example, my parents are now vegan. They always cook vegan for me and my brother. They eat primarily plant-based, but they do love their dairy, love their butter, love their whatever, occasional fish or whatever they eat, right? Would I rather have them understand the vegan mindset and go fully vegan, as in like understanding that animals are not here for us and that we need to end exploitation? Yes. And I would always push for that. I would always push for that message. But if there was an option tomorrow where my mom could have the same butter that she has always had, and it is identical in composition, but it doesn't actively contribute to the dairy industry, she would switch. I almost guarantee she would switch. She may never switch fully to plant-based butter, but she would almost certainly switch to an identical version of her butter, just that doesn't contribute to the harm. And while that, but again, like, especially when we're forget about flesh, when we're looking at dairy products and stuff, you have a vegan butter on one side, you have a animal-based butter, or a lab-made butter on the other side. What is as long as no exploitation is involved with creating that, what is the difference? How does one perpetuate animal exploitation more than the other? How does one create more of a mindset that animals are here for us more than the other? They are both mimicking an animal product, right? They're just created differently. And as long as the creation doesn't contribute to the exploitation and abuse and killing of sentient animals, then I don't know, what's it called? I don't know if I would have an issue more with it morally, right? Like you may be able to say, okay, it's not compatible with the vegan society's definition, which is not exploiting. Well, no, I guess, because again, you're not exploiting animals, right? Because you're not doing the biopsy. You have these stored cells, or you get it from whatever. So yeah, I think the reason why I'm conflicted, like, I do think this is a huge step. And not only that, but by producing lab-grown flesh, we're not just saying, like, it's not like this would be produced and nobody would bring it up or nobody would mention it or this is a solution, right? This is a proposed solution to a problem. And the problem is the cruelty and the exploitation of animals. And I think people that are interested in lab-grown flesh, people that are interested in that, recognize that there is a problem, right? They may not be able to make the connection fully in their own life, right? So like, if this is them and this is full vegan mindset, recognize the problem. Most people can probably get here, right? They're so close, but they can't put it together to have the will and have the action, right? But they recognize there's a problem. They recognize that they should do something, but they just can't, right? Or they won't. I think lab-grown meat has the potential to give them a solution to the problem they already recognize is there. So I don't think it's like, it's not going to be a one-to-one switch. Like, oh, animal abuser, exploiter, mindset, eating regular meat, and then he switches to lab-grown meat for what? Like, think about it this way. Why would a non-vegan switch to lab-grown meat if they don't already have an understanding that animals shouldn't be abused and exploited, at least to a certain degree, right? Like, why would they switch, right? Most people who wouldn't switch to lab-grown meat probably have a conspiratorial thing where they think animals are natural and the governments have to get them and this and that. But why the people that are going to be switching, they already recognize there's a problem. And this would just push them in that direction. And again, it's just speculation for people who are just tuning in. Hello, everybody. I'm just speculating, airing my thoughts about plant-based meat. Let me catch up on the chat, and I'll continue some other thoughts. If anybody has any questions, please put them in. Star Wonder says, I agree. Thank you. Gig says, I heard somebody say lab-grown meat is cancer cells. I don't know. I like I said, this is more of a speculatory, like philosophical, moral conversation. I don't know anything about the actual production apart from like basic stuff. I really wish you and everyone would watch Born Vegan's video on it before commenting on lab-grown meats. I will watch it. Again, the video is interesting. I am open to reasons why I like it would be a problem, but I am these are just my thoughts based on the carnism debunked debate that I watched and based on just what I've been thinking about. Let's see. Pig's Dream says 100% cancer cells in Bill Gates' lab. Yeah, like there's going to be a lot of conspiracy. I already can hear it. Fish are swimming puppies except catfish. That's funny, Race Lover. I don't know if that's a joke or if you, but that's funny. Yes, catfish would be swimming cats, I guess. I can't believe it's not vegan butter. Again, Race Lever, I would always promote the vegan message. Like I said, I am not talking about we're not talking about would I promote Whole Foods or would I promote would I promote something that has almost nothing to do with animals versus something that does. I would promote the thing that has almost nothing to do with animals versus like the animal flesh mimicker, right? But we're talking about like real world, like the impact of this if it were to be applied in the real world. Yeah, pretty sure they wouldn't take the risk of serving people mutated cells. Yeah, I don't know about the cancer cell thing. I don't know about that. If lab butter costs $2 more, no one is going to buy it. Well, Deemstars, again, that's speculation. If people are willing to buy grass-fed beef, right? If people are willing to buy cage-free eggs, if people are willing to buy these products because they think they're more ethical, which they aren't, right? Obviously, we know that it's a slippery slope between something actually being a solution and something being advertised as a solution. So, but I do think that even if it costs more, a lot of people would still probably be, at least people who are able to, would be willing to pay more. But obviously, I think it would have to be at least equal for it to for it to work out. Plant-based said, I think people like meat too much. Plant-based alternatives are not good enough for them. We need lab meat for the meat addiction, sadly. Yeah, I would probably, again, that's not, I don't want to have a defeatist mindset where I just accept that. But at the same time, again, I do think that may be true. And I do think it would have a good lead to better outcomes. Race Lover says, are you aware that animal agriculture factors in lab-grown meats and still projects profit from livestock? It's not the solution you think it is. Well, again, like I said, if there is exploitation or companies involved in lab-grown meat that are obviously profiting, that's different, right? We're talking about a lab-grown meat solution or alternative that doesn't have anything to do with the exploitation of animals. So again, I'm not aware of all the companies. I'm just speculating here. So I said I don't have a hard position on this. I'm just speculating. Deem says meat addiction isn't a thing, it's human supremacy. Yeah, I would more or less agree. Now, I do think people can be very emotionally attached to certain products, right? Because again, I think once you get down to the nitty gritty, people recognize that the products they're buying in the store were once animals or are chopped up animals, you know? But for the most part, on a daily basis, especially people who have never been exposed to veganism or a vegan activist, people aren't actively like thinking, oh, this is a chopped up animal. Like when they get a burger at the store, they think they're buying like a hamburger, right? I do think there's a lot of emotional attachment when it comes to the foods people eat. I don't think that's a good excuse to contribute to it. But again, we're talking about a solution that may get them to quit that or to be able to satisfy that emotional attachment, but is not actively exploiting animals. Okay, so, all right, I will continue. So, when it comes to comparing it to other injustices, right? Because what essentially the argument that I got from the debate from the anti or the side that's against lab-grown meat, and I'm again, this is not like I'm not calling them out. I think they had a lot of great points. I think the for side had good points. So I'm just using that because that's like the last thing I watched on this topic. But they brought up that like by us accepting lab-grown meat, we are accepting like a compromise or like it's a form of welfareism, right? Because we're saying, okay, you don't have to go fully vegan. You know, lab-grown meat is good enough, right? And I totally get that argument. I do. I think that if that is what vegans do, or like if that's what I did, I don't think I'd be a very good vegan activist, right? Because it's not, lab-grown flesh is not a solution to other forms of exploitation, whether it be clothing, whether it be entertainment, whether it be whatever. It's not a solution to the mindset of human supremacy, of speciesism, etc. So yeah, I think vegan activists that would promote lab-grown flesh as like the end-all be-all, I don't think that is a good idea. I don't think that is the goal. I don't think that's going to help people change their mindset fully. But I do think, like, for example, right? Obviously, I would assume most people in here, if not everybody, is an animal rights, abolitionist vegan, right? We want animals to be given rights. We want them to be free. We want the exploitation, the breeding, everything to stop. But when there is an initiative, like, let's say, banning cages, right? Or improving the welfare of certain animals in their current circumstance, I don't think it is wrong, or I would say it would be the wrong thing to do to not support those initiatives and not center our activism around them, not say that this is good enough, but to say, okay, legally, there is a reform possible. And the reform is these animals get X better condition or get this change. I think we should support those changes. No, we shouldn't stop fighting for full equality. No, we shouldn't accept that as like a good enough or as a solution. But to say it's either animals, like everyone's mindset changes, or F off, you're not vegan and who cares, right? What matters is full like a real world solution that would give like 100% vegan like a vegan mindset. I think it's a mistake because no other social justice, no other movement work like that. That just doesn't happen, right? Nobody goes from, okay, we're going to like kidnap African Americans, kidnap black people from Africa, bring them to America, breed them, enslave them, and then one day everyone's just going to give them full rights, right? Or same thing with women, right? It's not going to go from you had to get married, you couldn't own land, you couldn't have a job, you couldn't vote, to, okay, you can now do all these things, right? It just doesn't happen that way. What I think as people's mindsets start shifting, as like people start being more conscious of the changes or like of the issue, it happens in increments, right? Little by little, it happens. Now, but the message, right? So like I use this example for those of you who read my comments. My example was, imagine if abolitionists didn't support the ending of slavery because segregation or because essentially being homeless with almost no rights was the next step, right? Like abolitionists said, no, we are not going to support the emancipation of black people because they're just going to be segregated, and that's not good enough. So F off, you're not an abolitionist, we don't want this, right? And I think the mindset of we need to have full equality, we need to end exploitation completely, should always be the push. But to not at least accept a huge alternative or a huge step in that direction, I think would be a mistake. At least with our values. Like I said, we don't have to preach this in activism, right? I'm not going to start going on the street. I'm not going to start saying, hey, lab-grown flesh is coming, so don't worry about it until lab-grown, like I'm not going to do that. But I also think it would be a mistake to actively oppose lab-grown flesh, to say, no, man, get that out of here. Because, again, when I look at the abolitionists back in the slavery time, yes, the next step was segregation, and those abolitionists probably, hopefully, if they were consistent, fought for the end of that as well, if they were alive. But it is a significant improvement and a significant advancement towards equality that they wouldn't have had if people didn't support it, right? So I think these are things to consider. Same thing with women's rights, imagine if, what's a good example? Whatever, same type of example, right? Imagine if feminists didn't support the right for women to get divorced because they still couldn't vote or because they still couldn't own land or something. Like it comes in steps, and that's not the end all be all. That's not good enough, but to actively oppose it, I guess that's my position. Like, should vegans promote? No, I don't think we should be promoting or like actively promoting. But should we be actively opposing? I don't think so. I think there is a lot of potential for good and for the step in the right direction to be actively opposing something like this. And that's kind of, I don't know if that's what a lot of people who are against lab-grown flesh, it almost sounds like they are actively opposing it, which I don't understand. I don't understand the active opposition. I understand not wanting it to be tied to veganism or tied to you as a vegan. I get that. I get it to a certain point. But I don't get the active opposition. And I hope that makes sense. And like, the other thing is, like, I don't necessarily see, as long as there's no actual exploitation being done, simulation as like harmful. Like, for example, or like perpetuating the mindset. Like, for example, we have Grand Theft Auto. People can literally beat up prostitutes, steal cars, shoot police officers. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing anything immoral, so long as it stays in the video game, right? And we could speculate, okay, do video games create a mindset where people think this is okay? I don't know. I haven't looked at the research. But in the, let's say, in the hypothetical, we assume that they don't. What is the moral issue, right? Like, what's the moral issue if I want to put a headset on and virtually stab somebody 100 times? You know what I mean? Like, yes, we can look at the potential for that to cause harm. We could look at the potential for that to lead to actual action. Or it may very well prevent actual action, right? If somebody has some sick, twisted fantasy where they need to, like, they want to act on something and they have a simulation, they have an alternative to, like, actually acting upon it. I mean, no, it doesn't fix their mental issues. It doesn't change their mindset, but it prevents real world harm and exploitation and death. And that's ultimately, like, I don't need everybody to agree with me on veganism, but I do need everybody to stop actively exploiting animals, if that makes sense. Really quick, Star Wonder said, I gotta go. It was lovely to see everyone. Thank you for hosting these. Thank you, Star Wonder. Nice to see you. Please stop by anytime. So I hope this is making sense, because, like, it makes sense to me that the line is somewhere in the middle, right? It's not full support. It's not active opposition. It's like, okay, this can be a huge step in the right direction, but we got to keep the message consistent, change people's mindsets, end exploitation, etc. I just think that makes sense, and is fully compatible with veganism. All right, let's see. Comments. Let's see. Race Lover says, I'm a human supremacist. I'm still vegan, though. I can find myself superior to other creatures without wanting to harm them. Yeah, I mean, technically, like, for example, if you have a white supremacist, he could be a white supremacist, but recognize that he shouldn't be harming others. But I feel like that goes hand in hand. Like, if you're a white supremacist, you, like, actively think that other people are below you and therefore deserve lower rights. So I don't know if you should go around calling yourself a human supremacist. I don't know. I don't know if that is compatible with your position. Black and white mindset is dangerous. I agree to a certain extent. I think that we need to have hard lines, but I think there's also, like, I feel like a lot of vegans, myself included sometimes, look, I think it's important, like, we are the 1%, like, we're very small, right? We're constantly fighting for these issues. We're constantly, like, the talk I had today, I did activism today, and I got so emotional, and I got, like, these people were so, like, against me. Like, there was, like, at one point, like, a crowd of, like, 10 people calling me names and screaming at me, and, like, we're talking, like, just for me trying to advocate for, like, the rights of animals. People love animals and they just don't get it, right? So, like, I understand that we are so, we're fighting, like, alone, right? Like, I love this community on YouTube. Like, you guys are awesome and there's so much support. But in our daily lives, I more or less feel very alone, compared to other people. So I get that, like, we want to be a little prideful and we want to be like, okay, but no, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. But at the same time, I think it's important to like look at what is actually going to benefit the end goal, which is giving animals rights, which is having less animals be exploited, abused, etc. Deem says, I see no evidence that lab flesh will save a single animal. Yeah, again, this is speculation. I don't know. Who knows, right? It may, if it gets developed, it may lead to more animals being exploited, right? I don't know. My intuition leads me to believe, and my experience with non-vegans leads me to believe that it won't. But yeah, I don't know. Have things gotten better since women started voting? Should be your next debate live stream. I don't know if that's like against women or for women. I would say that, well, I don't know. I don't want to be like anti-man here. I would say that I think women having more of a voice, especially considering that most of the vegan movement, last time I checked, was made up of women. I would actually want to see more of a woman voice. So if you're asking like, do women still need more rights? Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say that there is still a very like great example. Great. Thank you for asking, Race Lover. This is actually a great example. Women have gotten rights, right? For the most, obviously there's still nuance and issues, but for the most part, they have equal rights under the law of like right to their life, right to protection, etc. Right? That doesn't mean that the majority, or even a lot of people, actually view women as equal, right? I would say that we all probably do in here because we view animals as more or less equal, right? So it's a logical extension. But a lot of people don't. Like just with my interactions on the street when I'm like people watching, there's a lot of like subtle disrespect and a lot of subtle like aggressions towards women. There's still a lot of like misogynistic mindsets with a lot of men that I interact with, right? But they are protected under the law. So like, yes, the goal, what feminists are fighting for, should be fighting for, what I fight for is that people actually get it, right? People actually get women are individuals. They have a right to their bodily autonomy. They have a right to have, the equal rights in the workplace and wherever, right? But I'm not going to convince everybody. Every individual is not going to be convinced. They're not going to have a change of mindset. But at least they're protected under the law, right? So if we can give animals rights, and if lab-grown flesh could be a catalyst to giving them rights, at the end of the day, if people have a vegan mindset or not, that's not my number one goal. My number one goal is giving animals legal rights. I think that's going to do the most for them. And then from there, obviously, still trying to fight with non-vegans about why they should give a shit, why they should care, I'm always going to do, right? Just like with racists. If I meet somebody who's actively racist and like doesn't care, I've got a problem with that. I'm going to still like I'm going to still like have an issue and try and like convince them otherwise. Dummy Valve says lab meat will take over. Doesn't matter if vegans want it. Discussing this is pointless in my opinion. Well, I think, like I said, I don't think it's pointless because I think at least amongst the vegan community, it's good to have unity. It's good to have some kind of understanding, some kind of like, okay, this makes sense, that makes sense. We're all kind of on board. I've been seeing a lot of division, and it's just exhausting. Like, I think there's so many, well, for lack of, I'll say bigger vegan fish to fry. There's so many bigger vegan fish to fry that, I think some nuance and some reasonability doesn't hurt for things outside of like the full vegan position or things that are more nuanced. Lab flesh, fasci harming animals. since it's used as an excuse not to go vegan already. I'll just wait for lab meats. No need to go vegan. Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard that too much, but I can understand like if somebody's like talking to somebody and they're like, well, lab meat's coming, so I'll probably just wait for that. Yeah, that's definitely, obviously we want to be against that, right? But that doesn't mean like they could have said that about plant-based meat, right? Like, well, they don't really have good meat alternatives, so I'll just wait till they create a good enough plant-based burger. Like any excuse you have for like lab-grown meat, people have used for regular vegan food or like plant-based meat alternatives. So I don't know if that's necessarily unique to lab meat. Lab-grown meat should be for animals that are obligate carnivores. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, which we can get into as well, whether, we should care about wild animal suffering. Wow, good job, guys, in the chat. This is like very active. Hold on, I just lost my track. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Vegan should ignore lab meats. Yeah, I mean, again, I think as long as you're not actively opposing it, I don't, like, if you don't want to, like, actively support it or talk about it, that's fine. Yeah, I agree. I don't think anyone is trying to ban lab flesh other than conservatives. Yeah, Deep Stars, I agree. Again, like, they seem to be the ones that are most concerned about, like, microchips. Like, they're more concerned about, like, conspiratorial things than actual, like, harm being done to sentient individuals, which is interesting. Generalization, though. If you're conservative and vegan, you're cool. Race Lever, I'm opposed to vegans wasting time on lab meats when we have better things to do. There are reasons to oppose it, but I'm as cool as long as vegans just ignore it, at least in some ways. Yeah, I agree, Race Lever. Like I said, I would never do this as, like, activism. I do think it's... Here's why I do think it's still important. Because people are going to ask, right? And I cannot stress enough how important logical consistency is, right? It's the one thing we have that non-vegans don't, right? Otherwise, we are just preferring, right? Non-vegans are saying, well, humans matter most because I say so. Okay, we're saying, well, animals matter like people as well. Well, because we say so, right? Like, having, like, consistent logic is so important when talking to non-vegans, because at the end of the day, that's what, for me, I'll speak for myself, that's what stuck for me, is the fact that when I would listen to a vegan gains debate, or when I listen to a Ed debate, or Joey Carbstrong debate, they were consistent and they had the better position and they were able to defend it better. So when a non-vegan, when I'm talking to somebody and they bring up lab-grown flesh, I want to be able to not just say, oh no, that's a no-go no matter what, right? Because they're going to go, that's weird. They might question that. They might see holes in the logic. I don't want to just do that. I want to actually have like a thought out position that I can share with them, because they ask, at least where I am, where I am, dude, it's the worst. Where I live, it's like the most, somehow in Massachusetts, like the most conservative, the most like country, the most like farm heavy, hunter heavy. And they know all the anti-vegan arguments, right? They literally ask. And if I don't have a good answer, then they think it's like a gotcha. Alu Ali Blue Vegan says, well, there's no virtual lab meat. Cells are probably most likely going to come from some form of animal exploitation until we can just make meat like alchemy. Yeah, I guess that wasn't the greatest example, but you know what I mean. Like by virtual, I meant like something that doesn't actually require the harmful action to be done. But yeah, no, but like if what, and again, I don't know too much about the process, but if what Jordan and Ryan in the lab-grown meat debate were saying was accurate, if you could make like chicken nuggets from like a random feather, If you want to call that exploitation, that's fine. I mean, that would be like picking up my hair from the ground. I don't view that as exploitation or as like harmful. But if they can do that and make chicken nuggets, then that would be like a solution that wouldn't require exploitation or harm. Hello, Giga Aro. Yes, you are Gig. Deemstar says, unfortunately, a lot of social media influencers are claiming that lab flesh will make everyone go vegan. Yeah, look, one thing I will agree, there is a huge difference between going vegan, right? Going vegan and eating plant-based or being plant-based, right? I don't think there's enough evidence to suggest that lab-grown flesh will turn people vegan in the sense that they're going to understand that animals aren't here for us to exploit them. But I do think that there is probably a good enough like inference, an inference we could make that lab-grown flesh will at least get people to stop actively participating in one of the probably the biggest area of animal exploitation that we have, which is animal agriculture. Lab-grown meats is a huge step backwards compared to veganism. But again, we got to look at where we're starting from, right? Like, sure, segregation was a huge step backwards for civil rights or for, race equality, but it's a huge step forward compared to slavery, right? And again, I'm not saying the message should be, okay, segregation is good enough or okay, lab-grown flesh is good enough, but to say it's backwards implies that we're already forward and we're not. Like and again, I don't want to be too anecdotal, but the interactions I have, like, God, it could drive you crazy. And I'm sure you guys feel me. Like, I'm sure you guys understand what I'm saying. Like, unless you're in like a really good area or something, like if you guys interact with non-vegans or you guys see the comment section, you guys see people, like, it is like infuriating. And it's like, it's so, it makes you feel so hopeless that, yeah, I don't think like veganism is the end goal or like that's like the best case scenario, but we are so behind as like a population. Vegan gains got me addicted to nicotine. Hold on, did somebody say vegan gains got them addicted to steroids? Because that was funny. Who said that? Oh, Deem Stars. Okay, yeah, that's funny. Okay, very funny. Vegan gains got me addicted to nicotine. That's funny. Race Lover said, I actively already think many humans are inferior to me. I don't see an issue. Well, I don't know. I'm not with you on that one, Race Lover. I guess it depends on what criteria. Right? Like, I could acknowledge that there are some humans that are less intelligent than me, or like I'm stronger than some humans. But by inferior, that's like a blanket statement. I don't think anybody's inferior to me. Like, they might be better at some things, worse at some things. So, if you want to clarify that, Race Lover, that's up to you. But I don't really care that much. That's your thing. Susan, if people loved animals, they wouldn't abuse them. I agree, but that's the thing is, there's cognitive dissonance is a real thing, right? Like, people think they love their kids. Like, in their head, they love their kids, but they can still abuse them at the same time. Now, is that real love? No, of course not. Like, in like real world application, they're not actually loving their children, but they think they love their children, right? So, like, I agree with you, Susan. Like, if people actually knew how to, or like were able to love animals, they wouldn't pay for their abuse. They wouldn't pay for their murder. But in their heads, they want to love animals. They do love animals. So that's why I say, like, I think lab-grown flesh could facilitate them, like, being able to work through whatever emotional attachment they have to certain foods and, maybe make a better choice based on their actual values. Susan, the fact that most people love animals is questionable. Yeah, fair enough. In quotes, I'm a racist, but I never act on my racism. Yeah, that's very, I agree. I don't know. I think you're talking about race Lover. Yeah, I agree. The supremacist thing, that's a very weird position. I'm a human supremacist, but I don't act on harming other animals because of other reasons, I guess. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Deem Stars. I agree. People love animals the same way they love their computer. Yeah, maybe. Maybe, yeah. Maybe it's probably. Well, yeah, yeah. But that's the thing. That's not. Love is not like. Well, now we're talking subjective, but in my opinion, love is not like selfish, right? Love is not like, oh, I love what. Oh, I only love this thing or this person because of what they give to me, right? That's not true. That's not real love, right? Love is a collaboration, right? It's I love them for what they add to my life, and I love being able to give to them, right? Being able to add to their life. It's a collaboration. And I agree with you, Deep Stars. People probably love animals in the first way, where it's like, oh, I love how cute they are. I love how sweet they are. But I could care less about giving anything to them or caring about them. Yeah, I agree. Oh, hello, LSLSLSL. Nice to see you. I think I said that right. I always try and say it correct the first time. Um, Guys, I'm like losing the thing in the chat here. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Hello, vegan stoner lady. Hello, nice seeing you. I finally went out on my own and had 2 outreach conversations today. I was nervous, but I'm glad I got out there. Yes, nice. I also had some conversations today. Awesome. Hope it went well. Good for you, vegan stoner lady. Hope you're still in. Hope you're still here. Carson is back now. Everyone is fighting again. Yeah. That's a fair point. Yeah, Carson really or reasonable vegan he goes by really likes to stir things up. Which yeah, I do. His positions, a lot of his position, I think he does advocate for more of like a welfarist position or like, yeah. Okay, I want to get to the next topic. Wow, we got a lot of chats. Good conversation here, everybody. LSLSLSL, debating people in comments is depressing. They're arguing about something they've spent literally zero. Yes, I agree. Yep. I always love like when I'm on the street and people come talk to me as if they've done research, but they have looked into this. They haven't looked into this at all. I love that. It's like, why are you talking if you haven't? Like, it's like if I saw somebody holding like a political protest sign, I'm not just gonna talk to them and give an opinion that I haven't done any research to support. Um, yes, I agree. LSLSLSL. LSLSLSL. Yeah, that's correct. I think most people don't even have the brain capacity to debate. It's not bad faith. They're literally just that dumb. Yeah, I think there is like when it comes to debate, I think there is like a intelligence or like an IQ issue. Like people really some people are purposely being bad faith, but I think most people they really don't understand that what they're doing is like inconsistent or illogical or like not like bad faith, you know? Ali says, I hear you, Brandon, on that. I don't know what that is referring to, but thank you, Ali. I appreciate your support. There are lots of very witty and funny people here. Yeah, I agree. There's a good comment section. Oh, you can just say LSL. Haha, this is just a. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I will say that LSL. Thank you. I like to call people by their name unless they say otherwise, so thank you. Yes, still here, stoner vegan stoner lady. Awesome. All right. Um okay. All right. Next thing. I do want to talk about this whole plant-based utilitarian label that's just being thrown around left and right by everybody. Like, I'm seeing this everywhere. Now, here's the thing. Okay. I'm sure, I don't know if you guys are on it, or if everyone here is on Instagram, but did you see Corin? That, I'm sure you guys have seen it, but Corin, that, like, fitness guy. Like, okay. If somebody makes a video, or somebody makes a post, or somebody makes a video, and like Corin did, where he literally says how to eat meat as a vegan, or he says, it's okay if you don't go fully vegan or fully plant-based. You can, as long as you eat better meat products, okay? That's what I would call a welfarist, right? That is like a welfare position. That's like, okay, well, at least if you're going to do it this way, right? And not really keeping the message consistent of like, okay, animals are not here to be exploited. Animals are not here to be exploited, right? That's one thing. Like, I am all for calling people out when it comes to like something very clear on that. But when we start like labeling like people with ethical frameworks or like moral frameworks when they haven't even really had a conversation with them, I find very confusing. First off, most vegans that I know, myself included, are not well versed with like, what is deontology, what is utilitarianism, what is all of the, like, we're not that good at like formal logic and philosophy, and like some vegans are very good at it, right? But but I would say most vegan activists aren't, right? We just don't know that much. I'll speak for myself. I don't know that much, right? Like, I don't know if I could confidently label somebody something like a utilitarian, because I just don't know that full ethical framework and what it entails well enough, right? I have the basics, but when it comes to like utilitarianism, right? We could just the basic premise, right? It's maximizing well-being, reducing suffering, right? For the most part, that's what they value, right? Whatever action is going to maximize well-being as a whole, reduce suffering as a whole, that's the action that should be taken. And obviously, that can entail some slippery slopes, like violating somebody's rights if it means better well-being overall or something like that, right? Or reducing, if it means suffering reduction, which obviously, right, I would say for most of us here, but I'll speak for myself, I'm very rights-based. I'm rule-based, right, which is deontological, right? The deontology is based around rules that we do not break, right? So I believe animals should be given rights, and those rights should not be violated, even if it's for a certain group's well-being, or even if it would reduce suffering and increase well-being overall, right? Again, I think it's a slippery slope. So I do not fall in a utilitarian position when it comes to human rights, animal rights, veganism, anything, right? But that doesn't mean that I don't value maximizing suffering and maximizing well-being and reducing suffering in certain arguments, or like for certain arguments, or like in certain hypotheticals, right? Like, for example, with the wild animal suffering, okay? If there was a way, hypothetically, that we could reduce or eliminate wild animal suffering without causing environmental catastrophe and without like causing more exploitation or like making it a worse situation for the animals, I would value reducing suffering and maximizing well-being, right? That doesn't mean I'm a plant-based utilitarian when it comes to veganism or with any other view of mine, right? So like you can have different positions or different like frameworks depending on the conversation. Right now, again, like I still don't even think that's utilitarian. I think that's just like a preference, and there's no like rights being violated in that case. So, unless, well, we get in that after this, but, you know what I mean? Like, there is a difference. Like, for example, if somebody asks me, okay, hypothetical, there's a random feather on the ground in the woods. No animal is harmed for that feather to be there. There is no possibility of more exploitation or harm or an industry occurring from picking up that feather. And it gave an individual joy, for example, by picking up the feather and writing with it or whatever they want to do with it. Because there are no rights violations, I don't see a problem with that individual picking up that feather. That doesn't mean I'm a plant-based utilitarian or anybody else for that matter, right? Like, I've seen like Earthling Ed, Lifting Vegan Logic, Vegan Gains, like some of the biggest and like most, I would say, like logically consistent and rights-based, abolitionists for animals being called like plant-based utilitarians. And I just don't see how that's warranted, and I don't see how that's productive, and I don't see how, like, and this is done without even having a conversation with them. Like, I understand if you have a conversation with somebody and they literally say, like Carson, like when I had the debate with Reasonable Vegan, I asked him, okay, would you support a slaughterhouse if it entailed less suffering than a different industry? He literally said, probably. That's a utilitarian, right? He literally said he values suffering over anything else. And if that means that exploiting animals and violating the animals' rights cause less suffering than something else, he would choose that. For the most part, I think there was more nuance there, but you know what I mean? Like, somebody with that position, okay, there we could kind of have a more ethical friend, because I was able to ask him a question. I was able to like flesh out his view. But if you don't even know somebody's view, like if you're not even willing to like have a conversation or like understand the nuance, then why are we like calling people out and name calling people? Like, I don't get it. And I understand there's a lot of emotions and like there's a lot of frustration with the message getting confused, like in the case of Corin, or in the case of Cosmic Skeptic, or in the case of these people where they are from one side, it looks like they are vegan or they are preaching a vegan message, and then they are saying completely ludicrous thing, like making completely ludicrous arguments or like content that goes directly against veganism, right? So I get that. Like, we got to call out people that are like clearly not vegan. But if just because you don't understand a position, or just because you don't understand somebody's nuanced position on something, on like a topic completely separate from veganism, like wild animal suffering, like the feather thing or whatever, right? Doesn't mean they're not vegan, and it doesn't mean that they're not like great voices for animal rights. So I just don't get that. So that's all I want to say about the plant-based utilitarian thing. Like, obviously people are going to say what they want to say. I just don't get it. Let me see. All right, go into the chat, everybody. Yeah, Corin was crazy. That was just, because what's so funny is he followed me like maybe like a week or two before then, so I followed him back. And as soon as I started watching his content, I was like, something's kind of weird. Like, not even that he said anything like too red flaggy yet, but something was just a little bit weird. And then that video came out. I was like, wow, that's crazy. Plant Abuser said everyone is a philosopher nowadays. LOL. Yeah. No, I think just like with other topics, if you don't know, like if you're not an expert in philosophy, like if you don't know that much, it's okay to be agnostic. That's the other thing. Like, you can also be agnostic. Agnosticism, or being agnostic about a position, is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Miss UK says, Brandon, you're awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Race Lover says, you heard him. He wants to maximize suffering. Freudian slip. He works for McDonald's undercover. Oh, man. Luckily, I never had to work for McDonald's. I used to work. Well, first, I got to say, Race Lover, I know I hope you're being sarcastic, but yeah, that's not true. I did have to work, or I guess I didn't have to, but I did work for a restaurant when I just got to college that served non-vegan stuff, and I got out of there as quick as I could. It's hard to, like, pass people something that you're completely against. So yeah, I got out of there as quick as I could. Deemstars, unrealistic hypotheticals don't have any value. I disagree. It has value if you can make a case for how it relates to our reality, right? Obviously, like, if I'm like, hey man, what if an animal had wings and could fly around? And like, obviously that's just like just fun, like childish, like just like shooting the shit kind of. But if I give a hypothetical, like, alien race comes down and wants to enslave humans, that has real world, like, depending on what you answer, depending on your values in that hypothetical, that does have real world implications and parallel to what we do to animals. So I think there's a lot of reason or a lot of value in hypotheticals. I don't, but you've got to be able to demonstrate how it parallels. You can't just make something up and be like, well, answer it. Race Lever says, tickling your lover, perhaps? Yes, maybe that. That's the Sofia Esperanza argument for why she quit veganism. What's the Sofia Esperanza argument? Oh, you're talking about the feather thing? Well, from what I understood, Sofia Esperanza, well, first of all, half her video was just gibberish. She was just saying journey, life force, sunshine. Like, half her video was gibberish. But from what I could understand, she actively wanted to, she wasn't just picking up feathers. She was owning animals, or had like animals on the property. She was eating eggs. She was whatever, from what I understood. Race Lever says, who is Earthling Ed? The power of vegan Jesus compels you. Yeah, that's funny. He does kind of look like Jesus. Plant Abuse says, Brandon is speaking facts. Thank you. I'm just airing my thoughts. That's all. And I'm open to discussion. I'm open to, like, pushback. I just feel like I'm seeing so much, like, division, right? And I don't see a need for it. I feel like there's a lot of nuance, right? Because at the end of the day, animals can't communicate with us, right? They can't talk to us. We are essentially trying to, based on our values as humans, based on our inferences and scientific evidence, we're trying to make the best decisions, the most moral decisions we can for them, right? Or like with them in mind, right? So when we're talking about very nuanced things, like, if you're like dismissive, like if you don't want to hear anybody like talk or give hypotheticals or explore a position, why not? Like, why is there like such a wall there, Because for me, I'm open. Anybody wants to ask me a hypothetical, I'm open to answering anything. And if I don't have a good position, I'll say, oh, shit, I that's a bad answer. I don't know. Maybe I got to think about it more, Like, that's what we should be about. We should be about constantly learning and like expanding our positions, and that's what got me to veganism. Reasonably unreasonable vegan. Yeah, I agree, Ian. Ray Summer says, I'm going to switch it up to Winitarian. That's funny. LSL says, Cosmic Skeptic is delusional. Yeah, I agree. I don't think I think he's coping. He's too smart. Like, he's too intelligent to actually believe what he's saying. I think he's completely delusional. So yeah. Uh, Aluwali Blue Vegan says if lab meat entails even small minor exploitation like a mouth swab or some plucked hairs, then it's not vegan. Yeah, that's the thing is like technically any exploitation isn't vegan, but like a mouth swab, like that's the thing is like again, we're trying to make the best decisions we can for animals who can't communicate. Like if the choice was, okay, and again, I'm not saying lab meat is like the end all be all solution. I don't, there's no evidence for that. I'm just saying like I would take a mouth swab over being bred into existence just to be exploited over and over again. But again, like that's more so for future animals because obviously we're not going to be able to sanctuary all the remaining animals. But like I think it's important to look at real world applications. But yeah, technically wouldn't be vegan probably. Agnostic vegan anarchist is the way. Join my call. I've heard about anarchism, race lover. I don't know. I haven't done much research into it. So I would love if you have any videos or resources for that of why I should be an anarchist. You can really philosophize yourself into quitting vegan. Yes, I agree, Deem Stars. Yes, I think I so agree, man. Like I think philosophy is really, I don't know if you guys remember, I debated that guy Eric on YouTube. And like philosophy is really interesting, and morality and ethical framework, like they're all really interesting, and it's like so ever expanding, I feel like. But at the end of the day, like especially somebody who isn't I'm not a philosophy expert, you could make things sound so smart that are just like copes or justifications for you wanting to slit animals' throats and eat them. Like it's so easy. It's like such a slippery slope between like I am actually making a good argument versus I'm making a bad argument that sounds really interesting. A lot of American people are literally incapable of admitting they're wrong. LSL, that's a harsh generalization, and I resent your generalization, but I agree. Yeah, 100%. I think there's a lot of stubbornness here, which is interesting. Now, I don't know what to compare it to, but yeah, I agree to a certain extent. Is Carson vegan? He keeps changing his mind. Yeah, I don't know. Like with the fish eating, he said that the only reason why, like the only thing he views as acceptable to be not vegan is health. But what does that mean, right? We know you could be healthy on a plant-based diet, so that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I don't know, Ali, if Carson is vegan. Race Lever said Journey is an okay band, but there's no reason to quit veganism. That's funny. Susan Brandon is one of the most down-to-earth vegans. He actually sounds like a real person, not like a vegan robot. No offense to other activists, of course. Thank you, Susan. Yeah, like that's the thing is like let's get real. Let's be open to conversations, and not in like a non-vegan way where they're like, oh, I'm open to it, but I'm not gonna change. Like, we're all vegan. We all, to a certain extent, acknowledge that animals shouldn't be exploited. All of these other issues, they're just interesting, and they're good to like talk about and form a position on for non-vegans. When they ask or something, so I think it's good to talk about it, and I'm open to being wrong. Like I said, I don't have a hardline position on a lot of things. I have a hardline position on veganism, hardline position on racism, sexism, homophobia, speciesism, all these things, because I think the argument is strong enough, so strong that it's almost irrefutable at this point. But other things, like I think there's a lot of nuance and a lot of speculation that we don't really know. Philosophy can also, hello, Bible Dumb Podcast. Philosophy can also lead you directly to veganism. It's just an attempt to extend logic to its further possible extension. Yeah, I agree too. I think like logical consistency and like moral consistency is important. Like it's probably the most important. Because otherwise you're just essentially you're just picking and choosing, like you're just making arbitrary lines. Deemstars, Carson is pescatarian now. Yeah, that was weird, right? When he said he ate fish, that's like super weird. Ali says, I was just thinking about Eric, Brandon. Yeah, right? That guy was wild, man. Like, especially the first debate. Look, I'll admit, the first debate I had with Eric, I really did not do a great job. That was like, I was like nervous, and he like had all the philosophy books behind him, so I definitely did not do a great job. But the second one, I really tried to press him on things, and he just refused to answer the question. Which again, that's what like when you have a hypothetical and somebody refuses to answer the question, it's because they know they're going to contradict themselves or sound absolutely crazy. So, hypotheticals are important. But yeah, that guy was wild. CDA activism. He didn't say he's pescatarian, but he said that because of his cholesterol scare, he ate fish. And he said he probably won't eat fish again in the future, whatever that means. You're right. That's not a vegan. Like it, like for me, if I got like a health scare, I wouldn't be like, oh, let me try this. No. Like I'm gonna do whatever I can to not do that. Like it's not even an option in my mind. So if somebody says I probably won't eat fish again in the future, I mean you're practically pescatarian. I don't know. And hello, CDA activism. I appreciate you joining, by the way. LSL. Yeah, that's interesting. The German video activist videos are, German vegan activist videos. The people seem more receptive. Yeah, I love what's it? Is it the militant vegan? She's awesome. I just don't understand half of the stuff she's saying. So, but I know she does a great job. I know that the stuff she does in English, I really enjoy. What up, boss man? Thank you for joining. Ali says, I wonder why he wants to do that, and he is not even a scientist. This fish sentience has already been proven. Yeah, I don't like from a nutrition standpoint. I get we're not all nutritionists, but from a nutrition standpoint, why would you eat fish to improve your LDL? Doesn't make any sense. Fish instead of like a higher saturated fat animal flesh, like like ribeye steak or something, might be beneficial. But compared to like whole grains and like tofu, why would you eat fish to lower your cholesterol? It doesn't make any sense. Race lever. Hypotheticals are good for two things: consistency testing and reducing to absurdity. Yes, 100%. I think that's why they are very valuable. I agree. He may, Claudius. Hello, Claudius. W. He may have cholesterol high by default from genetics. No. He got his cholesterol lower. He said he was eating a bunch of cakes and cookies and everything, which is really interesting because Carson, the whole point of the debate was that like vegans shouldn't be eating cakes. And then he goes on to say that he was eating a bunch of cakes and donuts and stuff, and that's why his cholesterol is so high. So that's interesting, right? I thought that was funny. At the end of the stream, I even said, stop eating the vegan cake, Carson. Oh, Susan, you're talking about in theory eating fish is better than eating a cow because fish eat other animals, but yeah, you're talking about like the wild, like the odd order predator thing. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know where I stand on that. I could get into that if you guys want. I'm way more agnostic about like. In fact, I'd probably say I don't want to see wild predator culling. I would love to see a solution to wild animal suffering one day, like a vegan world, like something that makes sense. But yeah, I don't really want to see people going out shooting animals for harming other animals. That doesn't seem like the greatest solution. But again, we can get into that if you want. Race Liver says, you touch my vegan cake and it's on. Yeah, me too. I actually we had a little celebration the other night, so I baked a cake. I baked actually 2 vegan cakes. They were awesome. Deemstar says, by switching from vegan cake to fish, he was utility maxing. Yeah. That's so funny. Allie says, please don't get into that. Okay, all right, Allie. For you, I won't. But if somebody else asks, I'm going to have to. I'm sorry, Allie. Odd order predators are good. If you mean for the ecosystems, probably Deemstars. But if you mean like it's better to have lions like ripping apart gazelles than if we could have an alternative, I would probably disagree with you there. But again, we don't have to come up with a. We don't have to get into that. I promised Allie I wouldn't unless somebody asked. So, okay, what else did I want to talk about? I already kind of talked about the feather thing. So I talked about the feather thing. Roadkill. So I used to actually be somebody who said roadkill was fine. I think I changed my position on that. Because again, I think animal rights is an extension of human rights. I would not see it as like morally acceptable for people to be scooping up dead human bodies and eating them. I think that could lead to a lot of problems. Maybe in like the tightest hypothetical with like, it's a homeless human who has no family and there is no possibility of like industrial cannibalism or societal cannibalism forming. Like it was like a one-off or something, then maybe I could see that like I'd be like, okay, morally it's fine, I guess. Like personally, if I died, I don't really care what you do with my body when I die, but that's like a personal thing. So again, I would probably say roadkill. I would not say that roadkill is vegan. It's still exploiting an animal that did die. Yes, they're not currently living, but it is exploitation, and I would be against it. So that's probably my position on roadkill. Everyone's calling out lifting vegan logic for saying roadkill is fine. I still haven't seen a clip. Like, I would love to know the hypothetical, because again, if somebody asks me a really like constrained hypothetical, I'm gonna answer consistently. I'm not just gonna say no just because I'm like in like reality, I'm principled. In a certain hypothetical, I'm gonna have to answer yes or no based on consistency, and I don't want to be inconsistent. So that's a little different. Claudia says, I wouldn't eat fish. You could supplement DHA, APA, or EPA, omegas easily. Fish is still animal protein. It's only better than pork or chicken because it does not have much saturated fat. Yes, I agree with you, Claudius, in terms of nutritionally. Lions, try our new Beyond Gazelle meat. All the nutrients of real gazelles without all the effort to catch those fast, tricky bastards. More time to chill with you, with your homies and lionesses. If lions could understand advertisements, that would be a great advertisement, Race Lover. Race Lover asks, so you cool with lab-grown cloned human meats then? Probably in a certain hypothetical, yes. In like a similar example where, well, first of all, consensual lab-grown meat for humans, I'm totally cool with. If it's consensual, totally fine by me. If it's in a context where they had to, they found like my hair and could replicate like a piece of my arm or something, I would probably be fine with that personally. Like, I don't see a moral issue with that. I do think, like I said, not outside of a hypothetical, I do think it could lead to a lot of issues, like potentially a bunch of humans who are sick of the imitation and want the hunt, want the chase, want the real thing. That could be an issue. But in a hypothetical where that isn't possible, yeah, I don't see like a moral issue with it too badly. Unless they're like everyone, like, let's say everyone at birth had to get like a biopsy done so that way they could be eaten or something. Yeah, that'd be crazy. And one more thing about the lab grown thing, like we could compare it to like women rights, right? For example, like sexual consent. So like, let's say you could, because okay, I don't want to get too graphic because it's YouTube, but like everyone knows that there are adult toys, right? There are adult toys that try and mimic a woman, right? They literally have like torsos and like genitalia and like really real, like as much as possible realistic dolls, right? They have adult toys. Imagine if you could make the same thing, but it's actual like human flesh, right? Like it's lab grown adult toys. Would you see a problem with that? Because as long as the adult toy isn't consensual, like if you could have an exact replica of a female for like an adult toy or a male for an adult toy, I don't see a moral issue with that. Like, yes, does it perpetuate that men or women or whoever's using it are here strictly for our sexual enjoyment? Maybe, but not any more than like a silicone sex toy or adult toy. So that's what I'm saying is like, with the lab grown thing, that would actually be very interesting. Now I'm engaged. I'm fiance, not that I would have any interest, but it would be very interesting to see like a lab grown adult toy or something. All right, let's see some of the chat. Hope that makes sense. Ali says, let's leave corpses alone. Yes. And Susan, yeah, me too. I get it. Race Lever says, roadkill is better and less cruel, but still persona vegan. Yeah, I agree. Claudia says, roadkill, my friend told me once he tried to drive over some bird on the country road so he could eat it later. Still can't understand why. Yeah, like obviously that's one of the things that could lead with the roadkill thing, and that's obviously not okay and not vegan. I was using Algeo capsules, but I stopped. I still don't know if they are needed. Yeah, I agree. Actually, Ali, I used to take a supplement of omega-3, but I get so much omega-3 from like flax and like my whole grain bread and stuff that I don't think I need it. So I got a different supplement. People are going out hunting on order predators because of that unrealistic hypothetical. Yeah, that's weird. See, that's the thing is like, I don't know if that's justified. Like maybe, like I said, maybe on paper you could make like a compelling argument or something, but I just don't think that's the best solution. Like I don't think that's even a good solution to the wild animal suffering thing. Hold on. Ray Sliver said, non-human animals can't consent, so why aren't you against lab-grown clone animal Franken Meats? Well, that's why I said if it didn't have, so I said if human can consent, that's fine. And even if I couldn't consent or humans can't consent, I don't see an issue with somebody picking up my hair on the floor and using it for whatever. As long as what they're using it for, it doesn't lead to a sentient being or sentient being being harmed. Like if they want to make a clone of me, that's different because now they're creating a whole sentient being that can get into who knows what. Rafe Lever, yes, there will always be some who want the real thing. Yeah, potentially, but if it's like if lab grown human meat or animal flesh or whatever is so well replicated, I mean, it is the real thing. It's just without the exploitation. Rafe Lever, what is an adult toy? Elaborate, please. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, lab grown. Yeah. Vegan Stoner Lady asks a question. Awesome. From your experience so far, what has been the most constructive message on your poster you wear for having a productive conversation? I'm not the right person to ask. I like to put vegan on my poster, so I say you should be vegan, come talk to me. I might change the sign up this summer when there's a lot more people. I'm not the best person to ask because, what's it called? I like to have the word vegan on there so that way even people who are driving in their cars, even passerbys who don't stop and talk, they at least get exposed to the word, right? If 1 out of 100 people, when I'm standing out there for hours, Google's vegan or Google's veganism, at least they can learn it on their own potentially. You know, they might not want to talk to me, but they may want to learn things on their own. So that's why I put vegan. It leads to a lot of dishonesty, and especially in my area, man, the people here are just crazy. But you know, I think it's I like it that way. Hello, Corvid Moon. Hello. Race Lever, we're just really going off the rails now. We're at lab grown hookers. No, we're not. No, we're not. I never said sentient beings. I said an imitation, like just like how they have the adult toys that are like just a torso. It would be a lab grown torso adult toy. So they're not sentient. So again, I don't know if that's straw man, but don't you straw man me, Race Lever. Deem says eating roadkill was freaking not vegan. Yeah, probably same thing with like dumpster diving. Although again, I think we could talk about that too, like dumpster diving behind like a Domino's and getting like leftover pizza. Again, I have no interest to it, or I have no interest in it. I've never done it, but I can't really make a strong argument that what they're doing is morally wrong since they're not actually contributing to it. Yes, like from a principle standpoint, like why would you want to eat the flesh of individuals that you're fighting the rights for the rights for, you know, or for the rights of? I get that, and that's why I wouldn't do it. But from like a moral issue, I can't really make a strong enough argument that's like, wow, that's blatantly wrong, you know? But yeah. Tom's Corridor. Are oysters vegan since they're not sentient? I don't know. I've seen arguments saying bivalves are sentient. I've seen arguments saying they aren't. I take the precautionary principle. There's no reason. I didn't really like seafood to begin with, so I have no reason to even go for that. Nerds like us. What if your DNA got into the hands of a criminal? Well, that's different, right? We're so like lab grown flesh would be regulated, right? We're not talking about criminals who would be replicating animals to like forcibly do things to them, like actual sentient beings. So that's a little different. Oh, thank you, Corvid, for being a recent subscriber. I appreciate the support. Race Lever, lab grown dildos. Don't tell me you're not off the rail. No, this is relevant. Look, Race Lever, you're very funny, but this is relevant. This is a relevant topic, okay? This could be the future, man. Tom's Corridor said, so starfish, jellyfish, and oysters are vegan? Got it. I didn't say that. I've seen arguments to say they are sentient, they aren't sentient. If there isn't conclusive evidence, I think we should apply the precautionary principle. So yeah, I don't know. But for me, I would encourage people to not, because there's a lot of other reasons to not eat oysters. All right, guys, this has been a great conversation. I think I feel good being able to like air out my thoughts. I like had that building up. I know I like to post like different comments or like different thoughts I have in the community tab. So take a look at that. But this is good. I thought this is very productive for me at least, and hopefully you guys learned something, or I learned some things with some questions here. Yeah, race Lever, I agree, man. Like, or woman, yeah, I agree. We should all go vegan. We don't need lab grown flesh. We don't need lab grown dildos. I agree. But you know, we're just talking about what's morally right, what the possibilities are. All right. Is it Jacob or Jacob? It looks like Jacob, so I'm gonna say Jacob. Correct me if I'm wrong. Jacob Crowbury. But he says it depends on the competition for the dumpster meat. If someone doesn't get the meat, they might buy it and increase demand. If someone doesn't get the meat, they might buy it and increase demand. I don't know what that means. It depends on the competition for the dumpster meat. If someone doesn't get the meat, they might buy it and increase demand. I don't know what you're referring to. Jakob, sorry, I don't know what that means. Are you saying that if somebody doesn't dumpster dive, it'll increase demand? Or if they do dumpster dive, it'll increase demand? I don't understand. Nerds like us, what are your opinions on plant-based food that is unintentionally contaminated by animal flesh or secretions? That's fine. I don't see that as an issue. I mean, personally, I just because of my own distaste for dead animal flesh, like I really don't want dead animal flesh or fat or anything around me. I find it very unsettling. Or I would really prefer to not have it in my body or in my mouth or anything. So, like, I always want to try and avoid that. But sometimes, especially if at a restaurant with non-vegans, they might deep fry the fries in the same fryer or something. Like, I'd say that's personal preference. I don't think you're actually doing anything to increase demand or cause or contribute to harm. Jakob says a vegan that takes meat away from meat eater if the vegan dumpster dives. Oh, are you saying like if a vegan goes to dumpster dive and a non-vegan goes to dumpster dive, they might increase demand because the non-vegan can't get the food from the dumpster now? That's an interesting question. That's an interesting point. I never thought of that. Yeah, I mean, that's if you got like multiple people dumpster diving and you take it over someone else, they might go in and buy it. So that's a great point. Hello, Mike the Corn King. Wow, thank you. Thank you for showing up. You missed a very long conversation, but I hope you check it out. All right, guys. Jakob, exactly. Yes. Yeah, okay. No, that makes sense. That's actually a really interesting point. That's a good argument. All right. I mean, it's 2 hours. I think we could probably call the stream. I'm having a great time, but I mean, viewership is going up. I mean, you guys having fun in here? I'm having a great time. Does anybody have any questions, or are there any other topics that you'd like me to go talk about, or any questions or any controversial things? Let's go for it. I am gonna wrap it up soon, but if you guys have anything that you would want to that you think is worth talking about, I'd love to talk about it with you. Ali says, would we want our food being in the same oil used to cook human flesh? Yes, I agree. Yeah, that's why I'm really as much as possible, I really avoid that because it is very disturbing. Mike the Corn King, what's your favorite style of corn? You know what's interesting? I've always been like a classic corn on the cob, but I tried cream corn for the first time recently, which I always saw was not vegan, but I guess it can be vegan because in the can it doesn't say. But I tried cream corn and it was actually really delicious. So that's cool. I also like corn in the form of cereal too, so that's also great. Race Lover says, real vegans live stream for 6 hours minimum, bro. Look, one day I will. One day I'll be like Vegan Gains and just stay up all night. But I can't. Dude, that's the thing. Like, I still work full time. Like, just a little bit personal about I work full time all week. I finished school, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. But I just got my degree, but I work full time, and then I'm doing activism. I'm doing outreach. And then I also have to spend time with my fiance, and then I have to have some kind of a personal enjoyment and do exercise. So like, it's a lot. To activism is like, when you really get into it, it's like a full on, it's like essentially like a second job. But it gives me that much fulfillment and it's necessary. So that's why I do it. Claudia says, have you ever seen Carnivore Quest? Wife got colon cancer. They are carnivore for 2 years. No, I haven't. But I mean, that's not surprising. Like, I'm sure we're going to see a lot of carnivore YouTubers either publicly have health issues or privately have health issues. Like statistically, we're going to see it. Now, it might not be everybody. Not everyone who eats meat gets cancer or gets heart disease, but I'm sure we'll see a lot of issues. Just got my attention because I see your comment on other guy, carnivore guy with colon cancer. What other carnivore guy with colon cancer? There's another carnivore guy with colon cancer? Are you talking to me, Claudius? Because I'm curious what I commented on. Corn is awesome. Yes, corn is awesome. Bible Dumb Podcast asks, how do you feel about discussing veganism with religious people on their terms? I can see how it might be effective, but it seems like it's just allowing for further dishonesty. Great question. Here's the problem. You have an individual, let's say we're talking about one person. You have an individual whose entire moral framework is centered around a belief. If you want to argue for veganism outside of their religion, you're going to have to debunk their religion first. And that's like a whole thing. That's like, you've got to be like a great at debating atheism on top of debating veganism. So if you can do it, obviously that would be better, but you need like 6 hours to debunk, like to go back and forth and then get to the vegan part, So I do try and make the case, even with them believing in the Bible and in God, I do try and make the case that like, look, we have the choice. I know it says you can do it, but why would you? And I try and do like more of a normative argument or like a normal argument. But that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, obviously I would want to debunk their religion first. I don't know if I could do it. Vegan Lemmer says, vegans don't eat things with faces or ears. Corn have ears, you bastards. Mike leaves a wake of deaf corn in his tracks. Repent, carnivores. That's very funny. Yeah, I always find it like, when they portray vegans in movies, they always have them say like, I don't eat anything with a face. Like, I always find, it's like, come on. Like, nobody said that. All right, see you, Plant Abuser. Thank you for stopping by. Kent something guy. He had colon cancer? I thought he got his colon removed because of ulcerative colitis. I didn't think he had colon cancer. I thought he got his colon removed because of ulcerative colitis. No, that was me. I did a video on Kent Carnivore. Tom's Corridor, sleep 8 hours, work 10 hours, workout 1 hour, activism 4 hours, free time 1 hour. Yeah, like it's crazy. Yeah. That's the thing is like, I try and do as much as I like, get as many videos as I can in advance. So that way I can like, and luckily my job, I could kind of multitask a little bit, but yeah, I try and get everything advanced so that way I don't have to spend too much time worrying about like creating the content. Raves Lever, Bible's very pro-vegan if you know how to use it. Yeah, I agree with that from what I've heard. All right, guys. I think we're good, I guess. I'll record. I ended up helping someone last night who was struck by a speeding vehicle. She was taken to hospital with life-threatening condition, and the driver was on meth. Wow. Oh my God, Corbett. Well, it's great you helped them. Hopefully they're okay. Nerds Like Us asks, if we can give a drug to make all farm animals unconscious so they are no longer sentient, would it be vegan to use them for their bodies? Well, unconscious doesn't mean they're not sentient. So just to be clear, that means they're momentarily maybe not aware, but that doesn't mean they're not sentient. So like, if you were to make a woman unconscious, that doesn't mean you can violate their rights because they're still sentient being. If you could have like, if you could create, like if they were individual, or sorry, if you could make like a human shell, but they were like a vegetable. I mean, it's really disturbing. I'd probably be opposed to it, but yeah, I mean, they wouldn't be sentient, so there's no moral issue. Allie, thanks. Have a really nice evening, Brendan. Thank you, Allie. Thank you for joining. Yeah, I think I'm going to wrap it up. You guys will keep going, huh? Wow, you guys are like... I can keep going, too. This is fun for me, but we got to wrap it up. All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Race Lever, thank you for the humor. Thank you for the corn. Thank you for everybody. For everything. Thank you, everybody, for the support. Thank you, LSL. Definitely stay tuned. If you've noticed, I haven't done too many activist videos or outreach videos just because I haven't gotten any. I do have some now because of today, so stay tuned for that. That should be fun and interesting and frustrating for all of us. And yeah, hopefully I'll do more streams. But thank you. Have a good one, everybody.